We continue with our discussion of Abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. This is the second part of our interpretation. In the previous section, we talked about the housing problem in the United States. By 2020, U.S. home prices had already risen to more than 6 times the average household income, making housing a heavy burden. Several readers found this amusing. Because in China, the situation is entirely different. In first- and second-tier cities, housing prices have long exceeded 20 times the average household income. If a 6x multiple is a burden in the US, what should we call China's situation? I felt the same way reading this book. Many so-called problems in America simply wouldn't qualify as problems in China. So you might ask, if China has even more severe issues, why is its economy growing so much faster than America's? The root cause lies in the different stages of economic development the two countries are in. China has benefited from multiple development dividends over the past 40 years of rapid growth. First was the demographic dividend, then the late mover advantage, and most importantly, the globalization dividend brought by joining the WTO. In the 1980s, simply allowing farmers to do some basic industrial work resulted in high growth. In the 1990s, having young rural workers move to cities was enough to drive the economy. Later, globalization brought technology and orders. As long as you could attract investment and build a factory, you were contributing to solid economic output. These are advantages the US no longer has. In simple terms, China over the past 40 years was like a teenager in the growth phase. Occasional minor illnesses didn't matter. Growth could either solve or at least cover them up. But the US is like a middle-aged or elderly person. Any small health problem can seriously affect function. Of course, the US was once young, and China will one day grow old. So America's current dilemmas are also a warning for us. No matter your stage, problems are still problems. And they hinder growth to some degree. Solve one, and you unlock a little more growth potential. Today, let's focus on America's urban problems. And at the core of those is the housing problem. If you've never been to Silicon Valley or San Francisco, you might imagine them like this. Home to countless tech companies and high-paid engineers, with some of the highest real estate prices in the country, they must be extremely crowded. Maybe full of high-rises, bustling streets, and non-stop activity. You've read the news. San Francisco is famous for its homeless population, tents on the sidewalks, public drug use, filthy streets, even human waste on sidewalks. You've heard of frequent store robberies and broken car windows. You might think, I'd rather live in a cheaper, safer city. But the truth is, Silicon Valley is not crowded, and San Francisco is quite livable. Take a walk around, and you'll see that most Silicon Valley homes are single-family houses with lawns and yards, not apartment complexes. Even during rush hour, traffic isn't overwhelming. Parking is usually easy when shopping or going out. And there's still plenty of undeveloped land in Silicon Valley. San Francisco's homeless population is concentrated in just a few neighborhoods. The high-rise areas are small. The city still has many single-family homes and low-rise housing. It's a relaxed place. Great for walks, ocean views, and quaint shops. Compared with China's first-tier cities, the urban landscape of San Francisco and Silicon Valley feels underdeveloped. But Klein and Thompson argue this isn't a good thing. For America to truly grow, San Francisco and Silicon Valley should become more crowded, more like Chinese cities. That's because the larger and denser a city becomes, the more creative and opportunity-rich it gets. If you're deciding whether to stay in a big city or return to your hometown, the answer is clear. Stay in the city if you want to succeed. This is backed by repeated research. And we've talked about it many times before. Even in today's world of fast transportation and remote work, big cities still have a clear edge. Because nothing builds trust like face-to-face interaction. In the US, people use Zoom for video meetings, and Zoom stock soared during the pandemic when everyone worked remotely. But now even Zoom itself requires employees to work in the office several days a week. In-person engagement is irreplaceable. This means a city's size is superlinearly correlated with innovation. A tenfold increase in population leads to more than a tenfold increase in innovation capacity. Every city also has its own specialization. If you want to work in AI, go to San Francisco. For finance, go to New York. Once an industry cluster forms, it's very hard to displace. So even as living costs rise, big companies still stay. Network effects are irresistible. Walmart is known for low prices and keeps its headquarters in a tiny town in Arkansas to reflect thrift, even requiring executives to live there. But when Walmart wanted to sell online, it had to set up offices near San Francisco and hire local engineers. Because if you want the best talent, you have to be there. So is the city only for innovators? What about ordinary workers or low-income earners? Should they move somewhere cheaper? Not really. If you care about your children's future, you should stay in big cities. Cities are not just innovation engines. They're also engines of social mobility. This book references economist Raj Chetty's research, which we've mentioned before. Kids born in Silicon Valley have triple the chance of becoming wealthy compared to those born in stagnant areas. If your child is born elsewhere, the earlier you move to a high-innovation city, the better. That is, if you're allowed to stay. In China, that's a hukou issue. And you also need access to urban education. In the US, innovative cities are becoming increasingly unfriendly to poor people. In China, young people often rely on their parents to buy a home. In the US, that's not the case. Americans consider 30% of income spent on housing to be the upper limit. If you spend more, you're house poor. About 30% of Americans fall into this category. Before the 1980s, New York was expensive, but salaries were high too. So it made sense to live there. After 2000, however, rising housing costs meant that moving to New York often meant lower real income. New York stopped being a city of dreams and became a luxury. Living there is now a sign of wealth, not ambition. Klein and Thompson argue that, at a minimum, a city should be affordable for its firefighters. You protect this city, but you can't afford to live in it? You have to commute from afar, and your kids can't attend local public schools? That's unacceptable. So why are housing prices so high even though the US has plenty of space and a stable population? Because fewer new homes are being built. This isn't an economic issue. If the housing market followed pure market logic, prices would be much lower. For instance, say there's a large plot with a single-family home. A developer could buy it, tear it down, build a multi-unit apartment building, and sell for a big profit. More units equals more money. So, logically, as cities grow, houses should give way to apartments, then high-rises, with increasing density and better public transport. But American cities don't evolve this way. Single-family homes stay single-family. Zoning laws say only single-family homes can be built in certain areas. Why? Because early residents don't want apartments nearby. Frankly, they don't want to live near poor people. Of course, they dress this up. Preserve neighborhood character, uphold architectural standards, protect the environment from high-density housing. But the real, unspoken goal is to restrict development, maintain high prices, and ensure only the wealthy can afford to live there. These regulations started in the 1970s and have become more widespread since. That's why new housing is so scarce in the US. I once heard a city council member in Silicon Valley say that local Chinese residents are especially opposed to apartment buildings. No matter how you explain it, they protest. He tried to persuade them, saying, "We need housing for low-income workers so that people can serve your needs." But it didn't work. They can serve us, but not live near us. San Franciscans are even more ironic. They're liberal Democrats, proudly displaying lawn signs saying, "Black Lives Matter, kindness is everything, no human is illegal." But propose building low-income housing nearby, and they'll immediately oppose it. The poor have been pushed out of the Bay Area. Those who stayed became homeless. Many think San Francisco has so many homeless people because of the mild weather, generous welfare, and tolerance for drugs. But that's not the key reason. Research shows many US cities are more hospitable for street life, yet people don't leave. Why? Because this is where they're from. They've lived here all their lives. They're unfamiliar with other places. They lost their homes due to unemployment or some other reason. Why should they have to leave? Chinese readers should find this familiar. We also restrict the so-called low-end population from living in cities, mainly through government administrative control for ease of management. In the US, it's locals protecting their interests through democracy. Regardless of the reason, when a city becomes a place only the rich can live, it's a problem. It stifles growth potential. Klein and Thompson advocate removing many of these restrictions and allowing cities to grow freely. You might wonder, Won't that lead to chaos and overcrowding? Actually, there's no need to worry. Humans are incredibly adaptable and creative. Look at Tokyo. It's one of the world's largest cities. It never tried to exclude the poor. It's not overcrowded. It just expanded. Its roads are narrow, there's no uniform grid, yet traffic is fine. Tokyo's housing isn't unaffordably expensive, and infrastructure is solid. It gives opportunities to people from all social classes. If American cities developed more freely, public services would be stretched. But those issues can be solved. You'd see everything from luxury condos to shelters, giving homes to low-income people, youth, and singles. Social mobility would increase. Urban vibrancy would return, with small shops and street vendors flourishing. Even for the wealthy, that's a good thing. Economic growth is never evenly spread. It relies on engines. Like large cities. Understanding this, we realize, instead of sending young people to build the new socialist countryside, it's better to help more people stay in cities. Have you noticed? The growth-blocking laws in American cities aren't mistakes by policymakers. They all make sense. Wanting a nice neighborhood isn't wrong. Limiting dense housing to protect quality of life isn't immoral. But these seemingly reasonable choices destroy opportunities for newcomers and hinder everyone's growth. Perhaps the deeper truth is, sustainable growth is not natural. It's a social miracle that runs against human instincts. Naturally, when you have enough, you avoid change, shun risk, resist outsiders, and protect familiar systems. Instead of growth, you want stability and security. After 40 years of rapid growth, China now emphasizes security above all. But this mindset contradicts the openness, innovation, and risk-taking spirit that growth demands. Conservatism is human nature. To keep growing at the top, we need conscious institutional design. To remove barriers, overcome instincts, and leave our comfort zones. Growth always means welcoming strangers, giving up some personal space, and taking on a bit more risk. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.